Once a month, Paula Pant, host of the Afford Anything podcast, answers voicemail questions the listeners send in. Here's one now.
Hey Paula, this is John Zaratsky calling from San Francisco. I'm wondering if you can share any lessons you learned while creating your online course. I'm considering making an online course of my own based on a book I published last year and would love to learn from your experience if possible. Thanks.
Oh boy, thank you, John, for asking that question. And I've got some commentary here. As background, for those of you who don't know what John's referring to, about a year ago, probably a little more than a year ago, I announced to my audience, mostly blog readers at the time, that because this was right around the time that this podcast was just beginning, I announced that I was going to build a course called, the title is Your First Rental Property, and it's a course on rental property investing. And it takes you from A to Z. It walks you through how to find, analyze, make an offer, buy, renovate, find tenants, and manage tenants in your first rental property. Whew. Okay. And I've been working on that for about a year, and it's been a wow. Okay. I realize I'm not saying anything other than just the word. I'm just repeating the word wow over and over. So I don't know if that's actually helpful or educational or not. But I guess there are two ways that I can answer this question. There's what have I literally learned about the logistics and the administration and the organization of the process. And then there's what have I learned about myself? And I realize that second question, the what have I learned about myself, sounds a little like puppies and sunflowers and ooh la la. But that's actually a critical piece of the process, and it's one that I completely underestimated before going into this. So we're going to talk about that. And because building the course, I don't mean to sound dramatic, but it's held up a mirror for me in a lot of ways, and it's helped me discover who I am. And that ain't pretty. Oh boy, it not. Okay, so let's start with what I've literally learned. First of all, the scope of work in building an online course is a lot larger than it seems. It's much more work than I had ever anticipated. I started by first validating the idea. So initially, I surveyed my audience, I collected feedback, I asked all kinds of questions, found out what people wanted to know, found out what their pain points were, and, created plans, created an outline. I created a special sub-list called the VIP list, which people are still signing up for. I created that sub-list on the website, and then I opened the cart to a limited number of people. Initially, it was supposed to be only 25 people. I raised the cap to 50 people who became the beta testers. And so that gave me the initial validation for the course. The fact that I was able to find people who wanted to sign up for the VIP list, which is a special opt-in that people choose to opt into. It's a special sign up on your email here if you're interested in buying the course. The fact that I was able to get a great response to that, I think at this point I've got about between 3,000 to 4,000 people who have signed up. And then the 50 spots for the beta test group, those sold out in less than 4 minutes. So that was intense validation that there was demand for this course. And I absolutely, completely 100% not just recommend, but insist that you validate an idea. Your numbers may not be the same as mine, but get that validation because you don't want to do all the work of building something without first knowing that people want it. The phrase, like, if you build it, they will come is meh. Make sure that people want the thing you're building. And it doesn't have to be a lot of people, but make sure that there are at least 5 people who want the thing that you're building and who are willing to put their money where their mouth is. They're willing to give you their credit card information because that is how much they want the thing that you're building. Because it is after you get that validation that the work actually begins. And that work is so much more intense than anything I had ever imagined. The module that I wrote on how to analyze a rental property, just that one module alone came out to 40,000 words. To put that into context, that's the size of a short book. So functionally, the finding a property module at this point, I've been saying that I'm almost done with it for like 2 months now. I'm driving myself crazy just repeating that. I'm tired of hearing myself say that, but the finding a property module is about 20,000 words so far. So basically, when this thing is all said and done, I think there's going to be around 8 modules. This thing is going to be about maybe 150,000 words. It's basically going to be the written length of 2 books. And not only is my assignment essentially write 2 books, it is also then produce full movie, literally many, many multiple hours of professionally shot and tightly edited and entertaining and educational video movie content around those scripts. So I'm writing 2 books and then directing a couple of movies. And then in addition to that, I'm setting up all of the distribution infrastructure. So yeah, it's a lot of work. It's really a lot of work. And so I guess don't underestimate the workload, and make sure that people want it before you commit to a project that size. Now, that being said, the mistake that I made was committing to such a huge scope of what I was going to cover. If I could go back and redo it, I thought that I was narrowing my topic by only covering rental real estate for beginners. That seemed to be a narrow enough niche. I'm not covering how to flip houses. I'm not covering wholesaling properties. I'm not covering mobile home parks or commercial real estate. Residential rental real estate in the United States for beginners. I thought that was small enough, but in hindsight, I should have niched it down even smaller. If I could go back and do it again, I would have created a course just on how to find and analyze a property. And then I would have released that. And once that was launched and released and out in the open and running with legs of its own, then I would have worked on a second course on how to renovate and manage properties. Just to split up that workload, because the scope of what I initially pledged to do was just, I'm repeating myself now, it was just really, really freaking big. So on the surface, in terms of how to organize the project, that's what I've learned. Oh, and the other thing is, so I have all of these ideas about, I don't want to just put this thing out there and hope that people do well. I want to actually do longitudinal surveys of my students. When a student enrolls in a course, I want to have a very comprehensive survey of where they are at this point in time. And then when that student is 6 months, 1 year, 18 months down the road, I want to continue to resurvey them to see what effect that course has had on their life. Have they bought a rental property yet? Have they actively looked for houses? Have they actively saved for down payments? I want that type of longitudinal data. I want quizzes and checklists and interactive materials. I want this to be an immersive and interactive experience. I don't just want to be blah, blah, blahing at people all day long. I want there to be software and tools and interactive, so I have all of those design ideas for this course as well. And initially, I was like just this idea machine that was like, bing, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do. And I've had to calm myself down and realize that this is all going to happen in phases. Phase 1 is build the course and launch it, which has already taken me more than a year and is going to take me a lot, hopefully, initially I was hoping that I would have it out by last fall. Now I'm hoping that I'll have it out by this summer. So, it's taking me quite a bit longer than I had ever anticipated. And I'm realizing that I need to, hold down the scope of phase 1, get that out, get that launched, and then in phase 2, start adding in a lot more of the educational layers that help ensure that students are getting much more out of this than they would ever get from a book or a movie, because that's not what this is. This is a true immersive learning experience. This is not just some video substitute for a book. And there's a lot of work that goes into that. And that's, I guess, the other thing that I've learned is that all of that work has to happen in phases. And so I have to really keep dialing back and organizing things down into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and be okay with the fact that not all of it is going to happen at the same time all at once. So that's what I've learned about creating an online course. Now, then there's also the piece that I've learned about myself. First and foremost, I've learned that this has really messed with my sense of self-worth. And, I've blogged for 6 years. I've written articles for 6 years, since 2011. And I've never directly asked my audience for any money before. And now that I'm asking my audience, I'm asking people to pay hard-earned money for something I've created. And I feel a massive responsibility towards creating the best damn thing that I could possibly ever create. So that has caused a lot of questions and doubts about my ability to create something that I think is good enough to sell to my audience, because it's got to be really freaking good. So, it's led to a lot of insecurity. It's led to a lot of self-doubt. I've questioned my self-worth. I've needed not just external validation, but I've really needed to work on my own ability to internally validate myself and to release attachment to outcome and to commit to taking the best actions that I can, and then letting go of the outcome and not taking it personally if the outcome doesn't, measure up to my standards. I've had to work on my own perfectionism in a way that I've just never had to before. Writers face this a lot. Writers can often be perfectionists, and creatives and creators and entrepreneurs. I think this is a challenge that a lot of people face, and I don't know if this happens to everybody who creates a course. Maybe I'm just uniquely crazy, but that is really what came up and what is continuing to come up for me as I go through the process of putting this course together. So, yeah. And then the final thing that I'll say is that I've noticed that often the things that I think are important are not the things that my students care about. And that's why having a beta test group is so critical. It's not just for the initial validation of the idea. It's also so that, I know what's going on inside of my head, but I don't know how that sounds to the outside world. So I might agonize about something for hours and then distribute that to the beta test group and discover that they don't actually care about the facet of the thing that I've been agonizing about, but they are supremely interested in some other facet that I thought was just kind of a side whatever, So, for example, I might pass out some lesson, and then I'll notice that several of the beta testers will ask me the same question. So if out of a group of 50 people, I hear the same question 3 or 4 times out of a group of 50, that tells me that I did not adequately answer that question well enough. So that's really the advantage of having a beta test group is, it's not just the initial validation, it's the constant feedback so that I know that that what I am producing is or will one day be worthy of selling. And that's a responsibility that I do not take lightly. So that might have been more of an answer than you were wanting, John, but that's been my experience of creating an online course. And now that I've gone on about that for so long, I guess I may as well say that if anybody does want to sign up for the VIP list, that's the list. They'll be the first people to hear when this course is finished. And, we'll get more updates about this course than anybody else. So I will link in the show notes to how you can sign up for the VIP list to get more information about the course. And again, those show notes are available at affordanything.com/episode 67.
Hey, did you enjoy this excerpt from the Afford Anything podcast? Then click to download our free ebook, Escape. You'll be taken to a page where you can enter your email for immediate access to everything you need to know about escaping the 9-to-5 grind to live life on your terms. And you can also subscribe with one simple click to get alerted when new videos are uploaded.